All right, ladies and gentlemen, the Punisher is back for 44 minutes. What's going on, everyone? Welcome to Movie Emporium's Disney Plus original review of Punisher, The One Last Kill. This is directed by Reinaldo Marcus Green. So, Punisher One Last Kill is basically a bridge between Daredevil, where he was in it in the Daredevil Born Again series, to apparently Spider-Man Brand New Day, which, you know, he is in the trailer. And it basically is a story about him dealing with his inner demons, him dealing with his past, the military, of course, you know, the fact of his family being killed. There's the Nucci family, which are brought into the mix. And basically, it's a story about him trying to cope with the fact that he's gone through so much stuff in his life that has caused him to become the Punisher in a lot of respects. And this series, or this short, I guess you could say, this one shot, basically deals with those demons. It deals with the simple fact of, like, how is he willing to protect a small suburb of New York, which has gone into chaos. There's gangs everywhere. People are dying left and right. He seems to be so despondent. Well, one day, you know, somebody shows up and all hell breaks loose, and he goes on his Punisher vendetta quest, or he becomes the savior of this small suburb of course, New York. And it becomes kind of a, like, 16 block type full action set piece where he's just murdering people left and right. That's kind of where this series lies. But it deals with, like, the inner demons of course, Frank Castle, the Punisher, who's dealing with a lot of turmoil in his own existence as a human being. So the Punisher in general is a very violent character, as we know. Jon Berenthal did a fantastic job, even though the series probably wasn't the best of the Marvel Cinematic Universe in the Netflix series. We can definitely say that Jon Berenthal really envelops the whole idea of the Punisher and is up there as probably the best version of the character, maybe outside of Ray Stevenson, you know, rest in peace, of the Punisher character. And this one shot feels interesting because, you know, maybe Punisher isn't something that needs to be a series. Maybe it needs to be like these one shots or characters that is a supporting character in some different movies and TV series. But the Punisher is as a individual. Maybe he's just a movie character. I mean, it just, from what I hear about, you know, what people think about the Punisher series, he's great in it. Jon Berenthal is great in it, but the series is maybe just not that great. Maybe it's just a movie type of thing. So here we have a 44-minute one shot similar to Werewolf by Night. And the question remains, and I will get into spoiler details because I do want to talk about a couple of things. Is this worth watching? Absolutely. It's great. It's actually shot by Robert Elswith, who of course is known for doing like There Will Be Blood. Reinaldo Marcus Green has a good sense of how to shoot direct, like, action, and how to shoot, like, you know, if he wants to do one shot takes or if he wants to do good camera work. So you're never kind of confused about when the action takes place. You're always centered on, of course, the Punisher, Frank Castle himself, and when the bad guys are coming. Yes, it's preposterous. Yes, all these bad guys are just coming at him at once and he's killing left and right. But it does a nice job of, like, setting up those pieces, allowing those pieces to pay off, and allowing Frank Castle to be Frank Castle when he needs to be. But it also does a little bit of deepness to his character. It allows him to kind of go into the darkness of who he is, because once again, his family is killed. His, you know, he was in the military, and that whole situation of him just becoming, like, really repressed, and it really does a nice job. The problem is it should have been like a 2-hour movie. It should have gone a little deeper, because I'll talk about in spoilers about why that is, but I think it's just constrained by that 44 minutes that Reinaldo Marcus Green is doing the best he can. That the stuff that is really important is not necessarily the action, but the mindset of Frank Castle himself, because you have to have a character that has depth to him. He just can't be just a killing machine. It's similar to like the Hulk, you know, if they allowed it to go a little more deeper and give it a little more interest, especially in this version of the Hulk, I think it would be a much better story. So therefore, I think it suffers dramatically when it comes to Frank Castle as a character, because it has to do all this material, all this heavy lifting, and then it has to do this set piece, and then it has to conclude in 44 minutes. And whether you think that's good or not, whether you're just there for the action, if you're just there for the action, you're going to get everything you're looking for. If you want more depthness, it's want to left to be wanting, and therefore it struggles. You know, there's moments with a shop owner and his daughter who, you know, is kind of dependent on, you know, the money and how they're affected by the gangs. And there's a guy with his dog that, you know, really bothered me. And there's just a lot of stuff there that can be placed. And there's characters that are brought in that really could flesh out a really interesting 2-hour movie that just doesn't work very well, to be fairly honest. So that's kind of what my spoiler review is, that there's a lot of great action. It's very well shot. It's very well set up. I'm sure his camera work and, Reinaldo Marcus Green and Robert Elswith are very good at working together. I don't know if he worked with Reinaldo Marcus Green on King Richard, but that's just kind of how I feel about it, to be fairly honest. My overall score would be like a 7.5 out of 10 because it has great action, but the story is just wanting. So that's kind of how I roll on my non-spoiler take of a review. But no, going in, it's still an entertaining thing. It's still an entertaining piece of material. I'm glad they're leaning into the mature content in the Marvel, because I was worried that they were never going to at least attempt to kind of go hard and dark in these types of things. And here we are with 2 shows that are M-rated that actually do a pretty nice job. So that's my non-spoiler take of course, Punisher One Last Kill. And let's go into a little bit of spoiler details. So there you go. Okay, so the whole idea of the setup is Frank Castle has escaped. The whole city of New York has gone into chaos. The whole suburbs are insanely just riddled by gangs, constant break-ins. This guy's dog is killed as he's beaten up by these gang members, which does pay off later on, which I thought was kind of awesome. I don't like to see dogs killed, but it had a good payoff. But the story is focused on Frank Castle dealing with his inner demons. We see Karen Page come back and kind of berate him. We see his own infantry members that he was running with in the military. We see his family. We see all these things affecting his head, which leads him to almost committing suicide, which is the justification for who Frank Castle is. He's lost a lot of stuff, a lot of people. He's gone into complete darkness. I do think it's weird how he did all this stuff in of course, Daredevil Born Again. He escapes from that cell, and this is kind of where we are starting off with him in his room, despondent. He's not helping anybody. He's just kind of walking off, and it's just really weird. And then we get the story of the Nucci family, which, once again, it's been a while since I've seen the Punisher series, so I can't remember exactly if they even coincide with the Punisher series. But of course, Nucci pops up. She's very much part of the Punisher lore, and she sets off a basically war zone of people being attacked that the Punisher comes in contact with Frank Castle. There's a family that lives in the apartment. He of course takes down gang member after gang member. It's bloody as all can be. It's violent. It's actually great gunplay. It really goes deep and goes into well territory when it comes to the Punisher himself. And once again, it's all set up by Nucci. Nucci's basically put out a hit on Frank Castle for basically what he did, killing everybody in her family, and left her, of course, in a wheelchair. And this is one of those story arcs that I have a problem with, because it's such an interesting setup, and it has a cool kind of payoff where he has to decide whether to save the family of the store owner or go after her, and he goes after the family. But if this is all we're getting for that 44 minutes, which is going to, of course, lead into Spider-Man Brand New Day, it makes me wonder why even bring the Nucci family into the mix. What is the point? You could still have everything that happens in the movie or in the short, and it'd be fine. And it almost feels like it's setting up a TV series or a movie that's going to play out later. I don't entirely know, to be fairly honest, but it is a little questionable why they would bring a major character like Nucci into the mix and have her really not do much of anything outside of be somebody who just sets off a war zone. And I don't know. I just felt that was kind of a strange thing to have. It's fine. But if you have a 2-hour movie or a 2.5-hour movie or a limited series of 6 episodes, I think it works a lot better. I think having a crime boss like that is fine. It works for the Punisher, stuff like that. But it leads to, like I said, just kind of really not much to Frank Castle's story. Actually, there's about 20 minutes of Frank Castle and his demons and him going to his gravesite and stuff like that, and flashing back to what happened to his family and seeing his people he was in the military with. And then it leads into the battle, and then finally it leads into him basically saving the shop owner and his daughter. And I like that stuff. Like I said, it's a very well put together episode of a television series, but it doesn't do more than that. It doesn't really have any substance to it, and that might be fine for most people, but I that's why I give it a 7.5 out of 10, because the story just needs more. It needs a 2.5-hour movie, or 2 hour, not really 2.5 hours, but 2 hour and 10 minute movie, because I think that's what would give it more oomph, more punch. And so therefore that's my major problem with the whole thing, is just that. But it leads, of course, to him finally donning the Punisher gear. He finally accepts who he is. He, of course, helps the guy whose dog was killed. It's a great scene where he actually lets the guy who took the hat like leave, and then eventually he like throws this throws this knife at him and then shoots him in the end and stuff like that's what the thumbnail that you see. And that's pretty much all it is. Pretty much what it is Frank Castle dealing with some issues, and it's going to lead into some form or fashion with, of course, Spider-Man Brand New Day. What exactly that's going to be, I don't know. Probably not much of anything, but if this is a setup for something, fine, I'll take it. It's a good setup. But if it's all it is, if that's all we're getting from the Punisher, I think they failed, to be fairly honest. I think they failed in what they were trying to invoke, which is Punisher thing. And maybe they're afraid to do a series because maybe they're afraid that it won't work. I don't know. Like I said, you could do like a 5-6 episode limited series of the Punisher and have it be just fine. Have this be like a starting point. Have this be like a prologue to the Punisher itself. And I mean, I don't know. That's kind of where I roll. Like I said, the Monucci stuff, the Karen Page stuff is fine, but it's just weird, to be fairly honest. I don't know, but that's kind of where I stand on my kind of spoiler take. There's not really much to it. A lot of people get killed, as you would expect from the Punisher, but calling it one last kill is almost like accepting the fact that this is it. This is the end of the Punisher as kind of its own thing. And I don't know. We'll see. We'll see if they continue the Punisher or not. But for what it's worth, it's still an entertaining 40 minutes. It needed to be longer, but it's entertaining for what it's worth. So that's my overall take of the Punisher One Last Kill. And yeah, that's it. So there you go. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. When you watch the special, let me know what you think. The comments below. What do you think of the Punisher in general? What's your favorite Punisher in the movie form or TV form? Let me know why. And with that said, if you like what you see on this channel, hit the subscribe button to join Movie Emporium. Hit that notification bell at the top to find what's coming next. If you like this video, awesome. Hit that like button. And as always, we'll see you guys on the next video. Peace out, guys.